What's going on, guys? Today is Friday, which means today is the day I make a video about something not related to One Piece, so I'm going to be talking about Naruto, and more specifically, I'm going to be talking about Obito Uchiha. Now, while this is a video I've been wanting to make for a while, I wanted to really take my time in deciding to do it because I wanted to become a lot better at making videos before I did because I care so much about this topic. So, with the combination of the recent comments I've been getting about people actually really enjoying my editing style and thinking it's decent, which completely blows my mind, but also the very good comments I received on my video about Dofi, Reiner, and Obito, specifically a lot of people really saying that they liked Obito a lot, I thought, you know what, maybe I will make a video on this topic now. And it's also fair to say that you could kind of view that video, at least the parts where I talk about Obito, as like a prequel to this video. It's kind of gonna be like what I was talking about I'll be saying, as well as the Dofi video that I made by itself, why I think Dofi is such a good character. It's kind of going to be just like that video, but for Obito. So without further ado, let's get into the shit. Let's talk about the man, the myth, the legend, Obito Uchiha. So first of all, I think it's worth noting, since very early in the series, even when he was under the alias of Tobi, he was pretty much my favorite character in the series, except with maybe some exceptions at some very select times during arcs, but mainly throughout the years he's always been my favorite character. A lot of this has to do with the fact that, in the words of Swag Kage, he is likely the most psychologically complex character in the entire series. And it just so happens that this is the type of character that I think is one of my favorite archetypes ever. I mean, I made a video all about 3 different characters from different series who I consider to all be very psychologically complex. But something interesting that Obito was able to do with his presence in this story was pretty much be the #1 theory out of anything that was going on in the Naruto universe. When you look at a series like One Piece, there's so many things we still don't know anything about, such abstract concepts that we don't really have any evidence to come up with a theory for, yet there are so many theories about them anyway. Like, what is the will of D? What is the One Piece? What is going to be found on Raftel? What is the voice of all things? How does Conqueror's Haki work? We don't really have any way to actually support claims for theories that we come up for this stuff, but we still come up with it anyway. On top of that, there being so many different things that you could be talking about that we don't know about, you can kind of go and do whatever you want in One Piece, and you could just make theories all day. But the interesting thing about Naruto is that I would say, at least in the experience that I had watching and reading this, okay, the biggest question, like, undoubtedly, compared to any theories that were being crafted before the series was over, was who the hell is Tobi? Even from the moment we first saw this man, where he was just acting like a complete jackass, he seemed pretty cool looking, his mask was cool, he was pretty normally built, he only had one place for an eye to look out of in his mask. Like, it was like, what's going on with this guy? He's a member of the Akatsuki, yet he's a complete idiot? Like, what is this? He's kind of like a disciple of Deidara at the beginning, and he acts like a complete jackass and calls him like senpai and stuff. I mean, it's so interesting, honestly, if you like go back and look at it and remember that this is actually Obito. It's really hard to believe. But then things really start getting interesting when he actually changes his voice originally. He starts sounding like Madara. And whether or not this is actually canon or whatever, I don't really know, because there's obviously no voice actors in the manga. But that's beside the point. The whole idea is that he started, you know, going under the alias of Madara at this point. And not just do we find out that he has the ability to some way phase through people, and we're not really sure how in the slightest, we also find out that he has a Sharingan, which is like, holy shit, okay? I mean, when that was first found out, there was just so much going on. That's when things really started to get cooking with this guy. From that point on, that is the biggest thing that was always being talked about. Who is this Tobi guy? So many different theories of different people he could be. He could have been like Madara's brother. He could have actually been Madara. Obito was definitely the biggest theory because it was so goddamn obvious, but that's beside the point. There were so many different people that everyone thought this could be. Even when Kabuto actually showed Obito the reanimated version of Madara, he pretty much shit his pants. And we didn't know it was Madara at the time, but we pretty much had some kind of reason to believe that it might somehow screw up his plan, screw up his identity, okay? Like, maybe some people even were speculating that it was a reanimated Madara. But that's jumping too far ahead anyway. Almost immediately after we see him with his Sharingan for the first time, we see him have his conversation with Sasuke, where he tells Sasuke everything about Itachi. And we're like, holy shit, who the hell is this guy? How does he have all this information? He is a complete boss. He knows everything about the Hidden Leaf, all the evil shit they've done, everything about Danzo. Like, who the hell is this guy? He immediately started surging in the polls, being a lot of people's favorite characters. He was certainly becoming my favorite character very quickly. And so by doing this, he pretty much convinces Sasuke that his best course of action is to declare war on the Hidden Leaf. And after getting him to capture B, really pissing off the Raikage and causing the 5 Kage Summit to happen, he gets Sasuke to go in and just fuck everyone up at the 5 Kage Summit. You really might as well just call him Kishimoto at this point, because he is single-handedly writing the story at this point. Obviously, Sasuke kind of fails because he was going up against 5 Kage. Obito saves him, declares war on the world, and then just exits like nothing even happened. He then tracks down Danzo and lets Sasuke out so he can fight Danzo, and pretty much just watches the whole thing while not really taking part at all. Sasuke has one of his best battles of the entire series with Obito just watching, and then they just get out of there when they have a little exchange with Naruto. Then he goes to the Hidden Leaf to steal the Rinnegan from Nagato, and Konan is pretty much completely prepared for him. She has 600 billion paper bombs just sitting below the ocean waiting for Obito, because she knows that he can only become invincible or intangible, whatever you want to call it, for up to 5 minutes straight. So she's just going to barrage him with paper bombs for 10 minutes straight. Obito then, being the G that he is, sacrifices one of his extra Sharingan to use Izanagi, and he explains that he, for some reason we don't know at the time, has Senju abilities as well. At this point, people are just completely blown away, like, who the hell is this guy? What's going on? Why is he able to use the Izanagi? It just doesn't make any sense. Then the war pretty much begins, which is kind of boring, and we don't get to see much out of Obito. They kind of have a stupid thing where he has 6 Jinchuriki, and it's whatever, but then the most important part, Naruto finally breaks his mask. And while I admit that when I first saw it was Obito, I was kind of disappointed, and I really thought that it was a shame that Tobi was now gone and we had Obito left over, Obito was just better. Like, he easily was my favorite character after his mask got ripped off. He, like I said earlier, ended up being the most psychologically complex character of the entire series. So, up until the point that his mask was ripped off, this guy pretty much wrote the entire series, okay? Anytime anything important happened to the world, it was usually done by his hand. Every time we saw him, he was clearly overpowered in so many different ways. He was a cold, calculating monster. He didn't really have any clear motives or anything up until this point, except that he wanted to use the ultimate Tsukuyomi, but we didn't know why. We didn't know anything about his backstory since we didn't know who he even was. It was just like every time this guy was on screen, he'd act super cool. It was awesome to see him, but we just didn't know what was going on with him at all. But then his mask gets ripped off and everything changes, okay? Obviously, Kakashi and Guy instantly recognize him as Obito. They're completely blown away, and he just kind of changes character pretty quickly because now he knows that they know who he is. Some of his lines in episode 343, when his mask originally came off, are just some of the greatest lines out of any character I've ever seen. They were so chilling. They just made me feel like, oh god, this guy is so intimidating, I don't even know what's going on right now. Like, for example, possibly the best of them all, when Kakashi asked, "You're not going to condemn me," Obito says, "Why should I criticize this absurd reality at this point?" This is coming from the guy who, up until this point, anytime we'd seen him not wearing the mask, was just this really cool kid, nice guy, wanted to be the Hokage, was nice to Kakashi despite Kakashi being a complete asshole to him, liked helping old people, just wanted to be a good person. The guy who was crushed by a rock and in his final dying breaths decided to give his Sharingan to Kakashi, who had been a complete asshole to him up until this point in his life. This is the same guy who is not just Tobi, but is dropping these insane lines that pretty much just signify his complete despair and hopelessness for the world. Now, that's the interesting thing. A lot of people had a really big problem with how this could be Obito, how he could have gone from this super nice kid, like I was just saying, to being Tobi, to being this guy who wants to end the world, has just absolutely no hope for it at all, and doesn't even mind killing his friends. But I seriously just think that people are thinking about this from a perspective whereas just because these are people from a fictional show, that they're not human or something. When you really consider all the shit that Obito went through after he had been crushed, it really makes sense for him to turn out the way he did, completely. It's even important to note that after Madara actually sucked in the Jubi, he was talking to Obito, and Obito was like, why? Why did you choose me? And Madara even commented it was specifically because he was such a good kid. If everything was taken away from him, his light was crushed, then he would turn into exactly this. That's one of the things that's so interesting about Obito's character, that from the beginning, when he was being set up as this kid who wanted to be the Hokage, just like Naruto, if someone had to go through circumstances in a similar way to Obito, it is very possible that they would turn out just like him. It is very possible that if Naruto went through the same shit that Obito did at that young age, with absolutely no other friends to support him, he might have very well turned out the same way. And I know there's still people that are like, oh come on, what he didn't go through anything that bad, okay? Like, he just was upset that Rin died. No, okay? There is so much more to it than that. First of all, this kid was also born as an orphan, just like Naruto was. He didn't know who his parents were, he didn't really have any friends, he kind of would act like a goof in class to get attention. On top of that, exactly like Naruto, there was Kakashi, who would be like Sasuke in this case, who was always just a super cool kid, all the girls liked him, he'd act like a complete asshole to Obito. It was like the exact same situation Naruto was in. Pretty much he had a really shitty life where he could never be as good as he wanted to be. Then at the age of 12, he becomes a part of a 3-man team where he participates in the Third Great Ninja War. I'm sure he's seen countless amounts of people on both sides, his own and the enemies, dying non-stop in this war. That's how a war works. It's even been said many times that these great ninja wars were just the bloodiest battles of all time. Not to mention, when they're on the mission where all the shit goes down, when he's fighting against the 2 people who took Rin away, he was fighting them with no remorse. Like, he was going to kill and he had no problem doing this. It's pretty fair to assume that he's killed many people in his life at this point. He is like 12 to 14 years old at the time or something. I think he was 12, but it's hard to say since all the time frames were kind of weird in this part of the series. Either way, no matter how you look at it, he has become a child soldier just going all the way through a war, and he's pretty much become a killing machine. Then after finally unlocking his Sharingan, which is something that he was desperately trying to achieve for years, he pretty much immediately dies and gives his Sharingan to Kakashi, who at this point pretty much is his best friend, despite just hours beforehand him still acting like a complete asshole towards him. Obito gives Kakashi his last wish of protecting Rin, and they leave him there to die. Now, from the perspective of Kakashi, anyone who really isn't Obito or Madara, maybe it can seem kind of strange how he ended up becoming the ultimate supervillain in the entire series. But if you ask me, once we see his backstory after he's in the cave with Madara, I think it's pretty fucking clear. So this kid is trapped in a cave for months on end, okay, where he has Madara spoon-feeding him all this shit about how the world is fucked up and it can't be saved and you have to take it by force. He is locked in a cave where he doesn't even have full control of his body parts at this point, since half of his body was just recently crushed, and he just sits there every day talking to this old man who is Madara, who is a pretty evil man at this point. Then after months of training as hard as he can so he can help the world as soon as he gets out of there, he is immediately set up by Madara, who allows him to escape and go see the scene where Kakashi is forced to kill Rin. It's not even like he's forced, he was just trying to save her and she just jumps in front of his Raikiri. At this point, he is hit with so many emotions at such a young age, okay? This man unlocks the Mangekyo Sharingan at about, what, 12 to 13 years old, right? Like, around that time frame. I'm not 100% sure on this because I don't know exactly when it happened, but I think it's reasonable to say it's possible that he actually unlocked the Mangekyo Sharingan before Madara did, okay? As we know, and it was explained by Tobi, the Mangekyo, or even just any form of the Sharingan, is created when a Uchiha goes through so much mental anguish that their brain releases the special kind of chakra that goes to their eyes because they're in so much psychological pain. This nice kid who had such an optimistic viewpoint of the world is just watching pretty much everything in his life turning dark all at once. He is going absolutely crazy. He's never been in such crazy pain in his life. Possibly no one in the world has. He was set up to feel like this. Madara wanted this to happen. He unlocked the Mangekyo at such a young age. Seriously think if all of this shit happened to you after you had been in a cave for months on end, pretty much going insane just by yourself. You worked so hard, you trained so hard so you could be stronger to come back and help the world. You have such an optimistic viewpoint of humanity, and you are like 12 to 14 years old, okay? Just think of how you think about the world when you are like 12 to 14 years old, okay? Like, this kind of shit happening would absolutely fuck anybody. Then after he murders all of the Hidden Mist Ninja, he doesn't even kill Kakashi. He doesn't do anything to Kakashi. He doesn't even take his Sharingan, okay? He's not like an evil, maniacal psychopath who just wants to kill people for no reason. No, he really actually wants to become the savior of the world. He wants to make the world a better place. I think that, like he actually said to Naruto, he believed that he was taking the actions of what a good Hokage should do. From his perspective, there was no hope in a world where you try and go about it in optimistic ways like Hashirama or Naruto do. He just didn't see a path where that was possible. And with Madara telling him that there's a way that it could be done, he's just like, okay, you know, I'll do whatever I have to do to make this world a reality. Of course, the fact that he could make, like, Rin come back to life in this fake world that he creates is some kind of motivation to him, but it's just nothing compared to the whole picture that he's going for. So, while that is pretty much all I have to say on how I think his character shift was completely justified, I think it was perfect, really. I don't think there were really so many things wrong with it at all. But that is not the end of Obito Uchiha. There is still so much more left to talk about with him. Through his battle against the Shinobi Alliance, and very much so against Kakashi, we learn even more about his beliefs and ideologies and the way that his mind works. He says to Kakashi that Rin was killed by Hidden Mist Ninja. No matter what Kakashi says, to him he's still an imposter who couldn't protect Rin. To Obito, Rin was someone who wasn't supposed to die. So then, Rin being dead is also an imposter. Rin is Rin because she's alive, and what Obito is trying to say with all of this is that in the world that they live in, you cannot live with ideals. You cannot bring Rin back to life. That's not possible, but that should be able to happen. He is saying pretty much, why should I have to live in this world where bad shit's gonna keep happening, where stuff I want is never going to happen because it's impossible, when there is such thing as a world where I can create these things, I can make things come back from the dead. And I mean, if you think about it, like, his logic does make sense. Like, if there is such a world where you can have something you want very badly with, as far as we can tell, no real downside, it's just this imaginary world where you can have whatever you want, why shouldn't you pursue that? Why should you be stuck in a world where only bad shit keeps happening and you can't have the things that you want? Of course, something like that would be a video for another day, a whole different video on whether or not his ideology is reasonable and justified. I'm not going to give my opinion on that right now, but if that gets a lot of demand, maybe I will make some kind of video like that. But then skipping ahead a lot, we get to the part where Naruto shares his memories with him or whatever, and they have their long drawn-out conversation about whether or not Obito is actually on the right path. He keeps saying the thing I was just talking about how why should he not take a shortcut if there are no negative repercussions to it? If there is a place he can go to which is an easier path to go down and it has a guaranteed destination, like he knows what's there, why should he not pursue that? And then Naruto kind of hits him with the shit that really is reasonable. Like, I could see how it would be hard for Obito to have considered this up until the point that he had a conversation with someone like Naruto, and Naruto wasn't even necessarily considering these things until he was speaking about Obito. What Naruto says is that he doesn't want to take any shortcuts, he just wants to know how to navigate the difficult path, and that you can't actually have a fixed destination. You don't know what lies at the end of the path till you start walking on it. This really kind of makes Obito feel like he's in a difficult position because you have to consider, okay, this is the man that has caused like the greatest war in the history of the world. He's just killed so many people, he's done so many terrible things. He's kind of a little deep into his whole plan. At this point, it would be a little difficult for him to go back on all the stuff he's been doing, so it's not that easy for him to just be like, oh yeah, you're right, you know, whatever. He kind of just sits there and considers it and sulks a little bit, and then he is defeated and has the Jubi ripped out of him, and then he's just kind of out of energy and lays there and talks to Kakashi and whatnot. Now, another important thing that people seem to have a misconception of is they think that Obito now thought that he was a good guy now that he wasn't opposing the Alliance. This, however, could not be further from the case. He completely sees himself as irredeemable, and he knows that he should by all means die. And in fact, I think it's actually better that he was a fucking man and he wasn't like, yeah, just kill me now, okay? No, he knew that he is still a very powerful man and he could be useful on their side, even if he's not trying to, help them out and then be forgiven. He wasn't trying to do that at all. He wasn't trying to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna help you take down Madara, I'm gonna help you take down Kaguya, and then we're all gonna be friends again. No. From the very beginning, he was planning on sacrificing himself to save the world, to help Naruto and Sasuke complete their goal of saving the world. And as we know, he carried out this self-proclaimed duty until its bitter end. He helped save the world. He was pretty much indispensable. They could not have done this without him in the slightest. At the moment of his death, he had absolutely no regrets of his most recent actions and dropped one of the greatest lines in the entire series, telling Naruto that he has to absolutely become the Hokage and then just disappearing forever. If by the end of this series you did not enjoy Obito as a character, then I honestly do not understand how you made it to the end, because it's pretty much fair to say that they shouldn't even name the second half Naruto Shippuden. They should have named it Obito. This guy was in the story for so much. He was so responsible for moving along the majority of the plot. He was such an interesting character to see from his very beginning to his very end. The only person in this story that I consider even slightly near him, in at least how much I like the character, would be Pain. And I do not mean Nagato, okay? I mean Pain before we find out that he is in fact Nagato, because they act significantly different. I can pretty confidently say that besides Naruto, I think Obito actually had the largest impact on the plot of Naruto. So I hope everything I've said here maybe has given you a better look at Obito as a character, whether you did or didn't like him, especially if you didn't like him, because come on, he's fucking awesome. But even if you did like him, maybe you see him in an even better light now, maybe you heard some things that you kind of forgot about. If you did enjoy this video, remember to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Remember to leave me a comment letting me know what you thought about this video, ideas for future videos I could make, both related to One Piece and different anime, possibly mainly shonen, since that's pretty much all I read and watch. Also, for the people who are new here, keep in mind that I do stream the video game sessions where I discuss One Piece with the commenters. I've been talking about it a little bit in more of my recent videos, but now I can really say after the last few streams, it's been getting lit, okay? There's been a lot of people joining, there's been a lot of One Piece discussion, and we can really talk about any anime you guys want, but I'm just assuming the majority of people here are for One Piece. It's a really good time. I recommend everyone tries to get in there if they can. It's really fun. And I don't know how the whole YouTube thing is working with giving notifications for my live streams. It's kind of hard to say since YouTube's weird now. I think you might have to turn on my notifications, which is just done by hitting the bell next to the subscribe button. But yeah, so I encourage everyone watching this video to definitely get in on those live streams the next time one goes up. Once again, thank you very much for watching until the end. I hope to see all of you in a live stream soon, and if not, I will talk to you guys on Sunday.